Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you take a look at your screen, you will see the Batman. Are you the Batman? Batman?
No,
A Batman?
just Batman, that's singular, like Madonna.
Oh, okay. So just Batman.
That's
No,
right.
okay. That works. So while everybody's logging in right now, so we'll go ahead and do the boring stuff first and go to the next slide, do the housekeeping. Do you mind swapping over for us?
I do
And then
not.
I'll intro you in just
Cool.
one moment. So everybody, you are in listen only mode. That means that you can hear us, but we cannot hear you. But please don't be shy. Use that questions panel in your sidebar to speak to Batman. Share. We are live. Please use the RDaily hashtag to share all over social media. Just because we've started does not mean people can't join, and we are recording. You will receive a copy of this slide deck and the recording after the webinar, along with a couple of offers. Well, not offers, that's not what they are. Educational materials. We've got some really awesome downloads from Glassdoor and Talview. Do you mind going over to the next slide, Batman? You're so much better at this than I am. I'm so glad you're following me. So we have Glassdoor here with us today. Glassdoor and Talview both made this entirely possible. The candidates coming in from Glassdoor are informed. They have likely searched you and, sorry here. Hey, Batman, can you help me out with Glassdoor here? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts? Yeah.
Oh, Glassdoor's a great place to get company information and understand more about like the organization that you're joining, and you're getting it crowdsourced. So this isn't like the company writing a review of themselves. This isn't like internal people who are like the rah-rah marketing people writing it. These are real people who work or worked there talking to you about things like their experience, the interview process, compensation. You can find jobs directly on Glassdoor. You can apply to those jobs. So it's a great resource for both organizations as well as job seekers.
Yes, it's fantastic. They help you hire people that are truly informed. And we've got a couple messages from them here today. If you want to scroll on through their slides, that'd be awesome. And then we're also here with Talview. Have you made it to Talview yet? This is a
Yep.
fantastic company. They want to let you know that the best candidates are only on the market for 10 days. They help enterprises like Airbnb, Deloitte, Sephora, Walmart, and Cognizant hire at the speed of their best candidates. I love that line. That's cool. So check them out. Keep an eye on your inbox. You've got some great materials there from them. Okay, Batman, do you mind going to the next slide? And this one belongs to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself today because I am
Thank you so much.
tongue-tied. So I'm going to shut up and give this to you.
Yeah, thank you. I really don't like when people introduce me and read like this whole bio and crap. I'm like, ugh. I'm pretty loud online, so if you follow stuff, you may know. The net for me in my background, I've done agency recruiting for 12 and a half, almost 13 years. And now I run a company that does sourcing, either on contract or one-offs for roles, but we're all deliverables based, so it's not hourly. It's a brand new way of looking at the market and doing things. It's way more transparent, and clients seem to be digging it. So any questions, obviously you can reach out. I think that you're allowed to ask questions to Ashley during this and like the chat and stuff. Ashley, if people are asking questions during the presentation, please interrupt me, like just cut me off and interrupt me, and I will
I
answer
totally
anything
will.
that I can. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I'm from New York.
Definitely.
It's sarcasm and interruptions. It's how we communicate. So without further ado, we're gonna go over the 9 recruiting workflow takeaways. So I have 3 what I consider best practices at each stage of the sourcing and recruiting life cycle. This is the top of the funnel only. This GIF is just priceless. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start with sourcing. The 3 sourcing tips that we have, we're going to go through. I'm going to show you live. This isn't just like a PowerPoint presentation because I have ADD and I can't do that. And so I'm actually going to show you what I do, how I do it. This is all the secret sauce. So take it, run with it, roll with it. Anything you see during this presentation will be sent out via Recruiting Daily. Any of the forms that you're looking for, the artifacts that I mentioned, reach out. I'm happy to share them with you. I believe in open source recruiting, so don't hesitate. Next, we're going to move on to messaging tips. This is where I'll probably spend most of the time. I really love this topic and find that most people, not even just recruiters, salespeople, etc., struggle with this, both of content, voice, and cadence of sending it out. And we're going to end with qualification tips, which, like, from an emotional perspective, is my absolute favorite. Most people think, like, I don't know, it'll be the shortest one we do today. But we're going to go through and have some good conversation around that. I actually don't think I've done this presentation without audience interaction. So, like, please, for the love of Pete, ask questions and interrupt me or argue with me. I just did the Animal Show podcast, so like I'm super snarky and in a mood to argue. So like, bring it. Let's do this. So number one, plan it. So for this, we call this Presearch. If you've been involved at all with the Sourcing Institute, Shally Steckerl's organization that does recruitment training, they call this Presearch, and I think it's fantastic. And the idea of Presearch is, what are you doing when someone hands you the JD, right? And yeah, you're going to do an intake call, right? Or not, ideally, yes. What are you doing? Are you just jumping right into the search and you're like, great, here we go, right? Build out your Boolean, run the search, look for the people, match the keywords, play buzzword bingo? Or are you actually planning your approach, your attack here? So what do I mean when I say that? I mean, hey, are you doing job research? And you can say, well, I know I've worked at the company for 8 years, et cetera, et cetera. You don't know what new competitors have come into the space. You don't know if maybe one of your competitors bought another company that maybe also competes in a new space now, right? For sales points, I do not care about the sales points of working at the company at this point. Right now, I care about the sales points of why someone wants to work on this team or for this manager. I always get benchmark candidates. So I ask the hiring manager, like, hey, is there anybody that like you've seen on the market or that you know of who looks really good that I could use to compare? And then likewise, are there any people that you wanted to hire but like you either passed on or that you know in the market like may look good but are just not the right fit? I want to do some research on the manager and the team, and then I want to do company research. So here's what this looks like for me. This is one that I had put together for Airbnb, and the role was a back-end role. This was the hiring manager, and this is the intake call, right? You'll see down here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Awesome. So these are the normal, like, generic questions, right? Yay. I always ask, what companies do you want to see people from in an ideal world? The sizzle for me is, hey, why does someone want to work here, right? Why does someone want to work on your team? And then, who are your top team members right now? External benchmarks. So this is super important. Why? Because then I move on to the manager and team stalking or research, excuse me, research. And I'm going through and I'm writing down all their past companies, their past education. This is undergrad and advanced degree. If I can find where they grew up, I'm going to search for that too. Why not? And then I'm going to look for their interests. How do I do their interests? I look for them on Facebook and I look for them on meetup.com. And you could say, that's really creepy. And I'd say, nah, maybe a little, but not really, right? All this is publicly available data. So I want to go to their Facebook page, right? For example, Sean Silvis. I want to go to the Facebook page and see what are they posting about, right? If their posts are public, what do they like? What groups are they in, right? So when I went to his profile, I saw, oh my gosh, there's like 4 videos posted of soccer. The only sports teams he lists are Premier League soccer teams. So I'm like, okay, cool. Probably like soccer, right? And I'm jotting all of this down for future reference. We're going to come back to this during our messaging section and go over like why in the world I am tracking all of this data. From there, this is where, as an agency side recruiter, I have to do much more research than you probably do internally. However, I want to do, hey, where are folks leaving your company to go to? Do you actually know? Have you gone on a sourcing platform and looked for past company, Airbnb, and just seen, right? Have you looked at your competitors recently? We talked about that already. And the last one, this is really big. When's the last time you Googled your company and looked up news, right? When I did this, this was pretty obvious. They probably made a company announcement about this internally, but great to know. No one knew about these though, right? Like a Harry Potter themed Airbnb rental, that's awesome. That's objectively awesome, right? And so, like, well, why does that matter? For messaging, that's unique messaging. I haven't met many people who say, oh God, Harry Potter, that sucked, right? Like, I've just, that, I don't hear that. People are like, but most people are like, yeah, Harry Potter. If you're one of those Harry Potter sucked people, feel free to ask Ashley and put in a comment as to why you feel that way, and the rest of us will gladly tell you why you're wrong. But you get the idea. The last one is Kevin Durant and Joe Gebbia, who is the CEO, actually built basketball and tennis courts in underprivileged neighborhoods. And this wasn't like huge internal news at Airbnb, but imagine being able to talk about this, right? And share that, like, yeah, we do the vacation rentals and we're like a hip company, we're super technically advanced, but like, hey, we also have a really strong mission. We stand for something, right? And then I'm using a combination of all of this data to actually build out my search right here, right? And yes, I'm a Boolean freak show. I love it. Whatever tools you're using may limit that, may enhance that. But that's my goal, right? I want to plan out my search based on some of this stuff, and then I want to execute right here on that plan specifically, right? So next, again, questions, just interrupt me. Next, we want to source with a plan, source with intention. This is like one of the greatest memes ever, right? Like, this is so cute. They had the best intentions, but they weren't being intentional, and as a result, womp womp, that happened. Don't be the person who pours your beer on the people in front of you. It's a bad idea, right? How do we do that? We're actually going to use our information that we just gathered in our search, right? So what does that mean? What does that look like? So I was doing, put this together for CDW, looking for a program manager that did contract negotiation. And I noticed the hiring manager went to Illinois University. So if you're thinking, oh man, Batman, like there's no way I'm going to take all of this data and run an individual search for each one of these. Ready for this? Watch how complicated this is. This is my normal search right here. Boop. And now I'm like, oh, I want to do a specific search. Boom. I don't know how long it's going to take you to type that, but I can't fathom it's super long. And then I would just save these 52 people in a project called, in this case, CDW-Program Manager-Illinois University. And then I just move right on to the next one, right? I'd go current company, Stripe, right? Oh, hey, I saw you're working at Stripe. That's so cool. These two people came out of there, right? And it's a much more focused approach to how to do this. And it really doesn't take long, guys, to run stuff like this. It's staying a little bit more organized and diligent about it, but ultimately, you're going to be able to still get to all of these people. You're just going to have them broken up in smaller groups that makes it A, more manageable, and B, your messaging quality through the roof, right? The last one, I'm going to watch this one more time. This is so priceless that this got caught on cam. Oh, just awful, right? The third, speed and efficacy. If you've ever seen me present before, you know I use this Oprah meme in like every single thing I do because I think it's funny. But what am I referring to with speed and efficacy? So on the speed part is analyzing how long is it taking you to build these projects, to build these lists of people. And then efficacy is, hey, how able are you to track things like metrics and the quality and the efficiency and like how effective your actual searching is from a platform perspective, from a company perspective. And here's kind of what I mean there. So, no, maybe I like click through to show you that it says spreadsheets. Yeah. I don't know if you're a spreadsheets person. If you are, you're probably a sourcer, and that's awesome. If you're not, that's okay. I get it. So why do I think that this is really important? We actually timed this out last year at SourceCon. I think Barbara Marks was one of the people there, and we're like, hey, let's take some profiles and let you look through them on LinkedIn and time how long it takes you per profile on average to add them to a project, not add them to a project, move on to the next one, etc. And it took roughly 8 to 12 seconds per profile. When I add everything to a spreadsheet or just export to a spreadsheet, it takes me roughly 4 to 5 seconds total per profile. And if you're thinking, dude, who gives a crap? It's like 3 to 5 seconds. Cool. If you look at 1,000 profiles a week, how much time did you just save? And the answer is a buttload of time, right? So what does this actually look like? I wind up exporting everybody that I look at, no matter of what platform, into what I call a lab. And my lab is a little more intense, probably, than your labs would need to be or your spreadsheets would need to be. But what do I do this for? Well, one, I want to put everybody in here with their current company, their years, past company, all the data that I can find online, load it right in here. And this is how easy it is for me to filter people out, right? I want to know, hey, I want to do a search and scroll down and eliminate all the people whose title doesn't line up. Great. Look at this. Ready? So easy. I sort by title, and all I need to do is use the tags over here to go, nope, doesn't match, doesn't match, nope, doesn't match, doesn't match. And I'm literally able to go like this, click, 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 all the way down the list, right? Boom. And then I can do the same thing based on company and go all the way down the list and wind up, we call this whittling down our lists. We wind up actually able to go through, 500 people in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's significantly faster than going profile by profile all the way through. Here's the other interesting thing that you can do. So when we deliver candidates to clients, we actually rank everybody. So that way you can see like who the best candidates are, who the ones who maybe don't line up perfectly with your role, etc. We also notate, where did all these people come from, right? I want to know which platforms are most successful for us, and what companies, etc. Well, check this out, guys. On spreadsheets, you can look at stuff like this, right? So that one, hey, we had to look at 484 profiles to deliver 103. Here's our response rates. Here's the number of ranks that we have. Here are the people who've responded that weren't interested, etc. How many intros did we make? So from this, you can actually have educated metrics in terms of, hey, here are the areas where we need help. Here are our bottlenecks. Here are the tools that work really well. Here are the tools that don't work really well. And you're able to have conversations both with hiring managers as well as executives. One of the other things that we really strive to do is we actually save all of our Boolean strings that we use for each search, right? We call them revolutions, right? So for each revolution, we're able to look back and say, hey, which one of these worked really well? Which one of these searches worked the best for what we're looking for? Now imagine a hiring manager saying to you, oh, these aren't the right people. Like, okay, great. Hey, here's my intake form. Hey, is this intake form still accurate? Yes. Awesome. Hey, here's the searches I'm running. Break it down. Are these searches accurate? Would you change anything? Well, no, they actually look pretty good. Great. Hey, let's go back and look at the reason I was eliminating candidates from the search. Would you agree that's a reason to eliminate them? Anything else you'd add? Well, no, that looks pretty good. Awesome. So we're on the same page with what you're looking for. We're searching for stuff that you think is completely relevant. You couldn't change or add anything there. We're eliminating the people, and you think that's relevant. Nothing to change there. We've looked at this many profiles based on the searches we ran. We import everybody. We delivered you this many. So what can we change? Because there's nothing else that we can come to the table with. It's data-driven conversation. They're data-driven metrics, right? And here's what winds up happening when we don't have that data. Your manager, your executive team, whomever comes to the table and says something like, hey, we want you to do 25 candidate screens a week. And as a recruiter, I would go, that's ridiculous. That's way too many. And then the executive comes back and says, no, that's a reasonable amount to do based on the time you have. And here's the thing. Both of you are kind of full of crap. That executive has no viable proof or reason to tell you 25 a week. Why not 24? Why not 31? Why not 17? It's an arbitrary number, and it's always a round number, which is dumb. You as a recruiter have no viable data to say, hey, that's too many. Oh yeah? Why? Where are you spending your time? What's the breakdown? What's the filtering process? What's your response rate? How many people are interested? How many people aren't interested? Where do you need to spend more time? Where do you need more tooling? Both of you are just honestly kind of bitching about stuff, which is cool, but you can't make business decisions or define metrics based on that, right? Executives and management will always be much higher. The actual people doing the job will always be much lower. They're in the trenches. They know typically, right? So
Hey,
yeah.
do you mind if I interrupt you? We have a few questions.
No, I love questions.
Okay, cool. So, first of all, Yulia says, the time when you realize you're not a spreadsheet person, I'm loving it. So, I love that. And then your questions are, what are some of the best ways or what tools do you use to automate getting all of this data from profile to spreadsheet?
Oh, you ready for this? It's a super long list. It's Zap Info. Boop, done. You can get a license for I think like 25 bucks a month. If you want the one where you can get the most bang for your buck, it's $40 a month. So even if your company says, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that," stop having a Starbucks on Fridays and just pay for it. It will scrape from any site you can think of, and once you scrape it, you can choose what you want to export, and you just export it right into a spreadsheet. It's literally that easy.
Thank you. That's awesome. And are you importing data to an ATS or just using the spreadsheets?
That's a great question that no one asks, and it's a really great question. I'm importing that data into an ATS. I think almost regardlessly, whatever ATS you have, except Workday, because it's unequivocally the worst thing ever. If you're using Workday, I'm so sorry. Reach out. I'll get you at one of my clients. You can take a spreadsheet or a CSV file and load it into most ATSs and even map fields. So for my ATS, I will typically take that spreadsheet that you saw and put it in a slightly different spreadsheet that just has a few more columns, right? I'm going to add a column for category, right? Software engineer, are they a data scientist, or is it in sales? Is it in marketing? And then I add another one for skills, where I'll put like a couple skills, right? Like if it's a Python engineer, I'll put Python. If it's B2B sales, I'll put B2B. And that way, when I map it into my ATS, it's super automatic. I map this column to this space, this column to this space, and I can wind up loading in 200 people at a time directly against a job, right? All of their personal contact info, right? We find all personal data, and we even keep track of like status directly within the spreadsheet. As a recruiting agency, I have to use that, not an ATS. For more roles that we're working internally, like retained or contingent, we just mark the status directly in our ATS. So it's a great question. Yes.
And we have a follow-up on that. Which ATS?
Tough question. So if you are an agency side recruiter or you are looking for pure ATS functionality, meaning not like the HRIS hookup, you're not looking to do hours, you're not worried about benefits, you are worried about like, I want to track candidate data I want to track role, workflow, add notes, etc. The best one on the market, in my opinion, is Crelate, Crelate. It is the most customizable ATS I have ever seen in my entire life. There is literally nothing that cannot be customized, added. Categories on profiles, workflow, different stages of notes to add. You pick what icons you want to use for those and what color the icons are. Like, it's awesome. And you can automate things like workflow automation. So if I add someone into like the rejected category, they'll automatically get a rejected email. It's a great tool. Beyond that, working at an organization, it's really going to depend on your use case, right? If you're internal, I mean, like Greenhouse and Lever, typically my first two that I suggest. They have the most integrations. They work with the most stuff. They're the easiest to use. And then you start kind of getting into the big dogs, and you're never going to run into like, you know, an iSIMS or a Taleo or heaven forbid Workday that's like all honky dory. There's always going to be some crap that you're not going to like, some stuff that you can't really do very easily.
Thank you so much. We have questions rolling in like crazy. Do you want to continue
Yeah,
on and
yeah,
ask
heck
some
yeah.
more later?
No, let's do it.
Okay,
Do it.
okay. So Jason says, before we get going, could you give us the name of that ATS again?
Crelate, Crelate. Crelate. Create
Awesome.
with an
And
L in the middle of it.
hey, that's good. That's great. And do you think Crelate is better than Zoho Recruit?
Yes.
That
That was
was a
easy.
simple answer for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And then we have a few questions around GDPR guidelines.
I'm not your guy.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
not your guy.
cool.
And the reason I say that, guys, is anything in Europe that I'm doing or a GDPR compliant country, I delete all of the data after 30 days, right? You're allowed to have the data. You're allowed to store the data. You can't hang on to the data. And there's a 30-day window in that. And so I just delete all of it after 30 days. I am not even thinking or worried about that stuff. Sorry.
So I think that answers the question, how do you keep your spreadsheet up to date with current candidate info? Or, oh, I forgot two. We have one about GDPR guidelines and staying up to date with that. And then we have a, how do you keep your spreadsheet up to date with current candidate info?
Yeah, the first one, I have a good lawyer. The second one, keeping it up to date with info, I don't. I load it into the ATS. It has all their personal contact info. If I ever want to reach out to candidates again for a different role, I have a hard and fast rule on my team. If it's been more than 3 months, you have to look at their profile before you message them, right? If it's within 3 months and they switch jobs, you know, like a month ago, like, I don't think anybody's going to bitch at you for that, like, too much. If they're like, oh, I switched jobs 8 months ago, it's like, come on, like, look at their stuff. So that's typically when I'm doing most of the updating. There's also a bunch of tools you can use to do that, right? Like, or I'll load it into Hire Tool, for example, and then re-export all of it out, and they tend to update all of that data for me. Those are generally the two ways. I also
Awesome.
don't
Thanks.
reuse spreadsheets for clients. So like every role I get from every client gets a brand new spreadsheet. I'm not like sourcing through old company searches. I don't think that's fair. If a company pays me to look for people and then 2 months later I'm doing another search for somebody else and use the same people again.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. And one more about Zap. Is it any good for the UK?
Yes, it works the exact same way. There's no difference. It scrapes websites, period. So it'll pull all of the data that you're looking at off of LinkedIn or Facebook, GitHub, Seek Out, Hire Tool, Meetup, etc. It's just a scraper.
And we have one more question coming in from David about a previous webinar where you reference strategy that you use to cater to each of your 5 messages different, or to each 5 different
David,
personality types.
take one big breath and give me like 45 seconds, and we're gonna touch on that piece. I'm super glad
Cool.
you brought that up. Yep, I'm definitely gonna touch on that.
Thank you. And thank you, David. Okay,
Awesome.
I'll let you
Cool.
go. Thank
Great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. That's interactive and fun. That makes this enjoyable for me, which for me is the most important. Just kidding. So for messaging, PwC put out a study in 2017. Sorry, I know it's a little outdated. The number of candidate touches it takes to generate a positive response is between 7 to 12. Now, that includes things like going to their LinkedIn profile, adding them on LinkedIn, following them on Twitter. So I've boiled it down to I find that 5 to 7 messages is the right number to generate the maximum number of responses. And for this, the two things I think about is one, I want to write out the messages ahead of time. So I'm not like redoing it and reinventing the wheel every time, right? Templates work. And then I want to automate it. So I couldn't suggest highly enough using a tool that has email automation. So either that's a direct email automation tool, right? Interseller, Resource.io, Top Funnel, Gem, or using a sourcing platform that has it, Seek Out, Hire Tool, both have that built in, or an ATS that has it built in, like Crelate, for example, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Super important because otherwise the time it takes to actually send all of these follow-up messages, it's actually almost not worth it anymore. You wind up just spending all of your days every day following up with candidates again. So super important to find a way to automate this. If you're a Gmail shop and you have no money, just look at Gmass. It's like $5 a month or something, and you can mail merge. It's super easy. So really, really important. The second is the source-specific messaging. So what do I mean when I say this? I mean all that research we did, right? Like what schools did they go to? Where did they grow up? What are their interests, et cetera, et cetera. I use that to then find, to reach out to the people and reference it for a higher response rate. And I promise you will always, always, always get a higher response rate if you're able to message something personal, not about your company, not about the job, right? Where did they go to school? Where did they grow up? What are they into? What do they do for fun, right? And again, if you take the courses through the Sourcing Institute, Shally teaches the 7 points of personalization. I personally, I don't use the full 7 points. It's a little much for me based on my style. But I do use points of personalization, right? I always use name. I put the day of the week in every campaign that I use. I use the company. Sometimes I'll use the title. It can be a little daunting. But if you're thinking, that's too much personalization, that's going to sound super weird. This is what it would read like. Be like, hey, Julia, I hope it's a good Wednesday in Houston. I saw your profile on LinkedIn. It says you're still in the recruiting space. I wanted to see if things are still going really well in your sourcing role at Wayne Technologies. It sounds pretty natural, actually. It's a little much for me. It's not how I communicate, but it's a pretty good way to make it so people don't read your message and go spam, unsubscribe, right? No one's reading that message and going spam, right? Like, really, really? Caveat to that. If you are using templates, you have to clean your data. I'm going to repeat that. If you're using templates, you have to clean your data. What does that mean? That means if you're going to use first name, you're going to use job title, or you're going to use company, they have to be cleaned up beforehand. If you reach out to me and say, hey, Michael, I hope it's a good whatever, whatever, I go, are you my mom? Are you my grandma? Are you my sister? Or are you my wife? No, deleted. That's spam. That no one calls me Michael. It's not a thing. Company. If you reach out to me and go, hey, how are things going at Wayne Technologies Inc.? Spam, deleted, right? Hey, are things going really well in your director, comma, human resources, benefits administration and compensation role at blah? Spam. That's ridiculous. You have to be smart about doing this. I am all for templates, but I'm for smart usage and personalized usage of templates. If you're not going to put in the time to do that, don't send mass messages. You're going to look dumb. The last one in messaging. Looks matter. Not your looks. You're all perfect snowflakes. I love that. But the look of your actual messages, like visually, the look matters, right? The human eye is naturally attracted to things it finds beautiful, right? For example, the human eye tends to like symmetry in things. In messaging, the human eye likes white space and images. So, what does that look like? That looks like short paragraphs. If you have any block of text in your email that's more than 2 sentences, make it a different paragraph with white space between it, right? Most people communicating now also communicate through text message, and that's not a generational thing, right? Like my parents text message me, and they are certainly not millennials, right? So Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, they all communicate. My dad's a boomer, he communicates that way. So when you're text messaging, that's my primary form of communication, as I think it probably is for most people. What are your thoughts when you get one of those text messages that you have to scroll to read all of it, right? I get one of those text messages and I'm like, oh, mom, come on, dude. Like, figure it out, right? Or whoever, but probably my mom. That is the exact same feeling people get now in emails. Where like I get a big paragraph, I'm like, oh, come on. Like, I don't want to read that crap. Like, make it digestible for me, please. So super important. The other piece, quick tip, your subject should be 38 characters or less. 38. Why? Oh, great question. Thank you for asking. So the smallest phone out in mass in the market right now is an iPhone 8 and the Android equivalent, whatever that is. On those phones using Outlook and Gmail, unless you're zoomed in for some weird reason, um, each of them tend to show 42 characters in the subject line before you get that dot, dot, dot and get it cut off. Here's the thing. If you hit 43 characters, it doesn't just cut off one character. It cuts off like a third of your message and goes dot, dot, dot. So they're not seeing your whole subject. So if you're mathing with me on a Wednesday, you'll notice I said 42, but it says 38 in front of you. That's weird. Why? Because I'm assuming all of you are awesome recruiters and you're sending a follow-up email. And if you're sending a follow-up email, it's going to append RE colon space to the front of your subject. And if we're mathing still, that's 38 plus 4, which is 42. So be super mindful about that in your subject. Next, we want to use humor. Guys, humor is kind of universally accepted. I don't know people who are like, ugh, I hate funny things. Like, yikers, right? And I'll caveat that by saying, like, you're funny. You're probably funny. Just because your spouse tells you you're not funny, that is not true. My spouse says that all the time, and I think I'm pretty funny. If you're actually not funny, like phone a friend or look up something online and use that instead. But humor is super important. Emotions are the number one driving factor of behavior and action. Emotions are the number one thing that generates actions. And guys, guess what the number one emotion that generates action is? It's fear. But we don't want to use that. Number two is humor. So, yeah, let's go with number two. The third one is using images in your text. I hear all types of stuff, right? Like, oh, that's not professional or it's not on brand or whatever. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Cool. I have, if you would like it, an actual journal article, a research journal article written by scientists studying response rate of text versus image. It is, I think the number, I'm going to go low on this. I think it's just a little higher, but I'm going to say, I think they said 31% more successful using images because in today's day and age, with the amount of information we have at our disposal, we want the quickest way to absorb information as possible. It's always going to be images, right? That like image paints 1,000 words or whatever the exact phrase is. I should know that. I don't. That's true. And you can get a point across. You also can evoke emotion better with images than you can with words for two reasons. One, it's instant, and two, people are lazy, right? And if you're like, well, that's not really true, cool. Count the number of TV episodes versus books you've read in the last 2 months. If the books are higher, that's awesome. You're a rarity, right? So if you want that study, message me. I'll send it to you. It's a journal article. So looking back over this, I want to take a quick second to actually show you, because it's easy for me to tell you all day, like, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing this. But I think it's going to be much more effective if I can actually show you what I'm talking about in terms of like multiple messages. So let's look at, I don't know, Go Engineers for New York Times. You're a client of mine, right? 86% open rate, 40% reply rate, 163 people. And by the way, don't like blast to the world. You're like, oh, I have a 70% response rate. If you email 10 people, cool, right? That's cool, but like, there's a reason it's that high, right? It's 10 people. So check this out, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the interesting thing. The first email got 10% response rate. The second got 14. The third, 14. The fourth, 3%, which is super sad because it has like a really funny meme in it. And the fifth email, 5, got a 12% response rate. So if you're not sending that many, look at the number of people. Ready? 106 people reached. Let me make this a little bit bigger. 106 people with a 12% response rate. That's like 11 responses that you'd miss if you only sent 4 emails. To answer David's question, I actually break my emails out using the DISC assessments. So if you're familiar, it's a breakdown of personality tests. It's similar to like Myers-Briggs, but I think a little bit better. I'm biased, but a little better. And I write one of these emails to appeal to each of the personality profiles. So this first one appeals to like the high D, the dominant personality. What do they want? They want, hey, give me the TLDR. If you don't know what that means, it stands for too long, didn't read, which is what I respond when you send me a 3-paragraph email. That's your only response. TL, semicolon, DR, peace out. I'm not reading that, right? So, hey, high D, who's super important. They're a dominant personality. They're like the alpha, typically a high ego. I know I'm a high D, right? This is what I want to know. Why are you emailing me right now? Cool. And then, hey, just like one quick point here. Look, one sentence. One quick point here. Look, one sentence with white space in between. Great, that's for the D. The next one I send for a high S. Hey, look, one sentence in white space. Hey, look, one sentence in white space. The S's are super concerned about culture and team fit and being a part of something bigger than themselves. So like, look, we, we, share an article, talk about this, talk about our culture, right? So it appeals to that type of personality. The third is written for a high C. These are like the, hey, give me the data and get out of my face. These are the people like when you're talking to them on the phone, that like, you answer the phone, you're like, hey, and they're like, hey, can you send me over the document that goes blah, 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 right? I'm a high I, so I'm like, oh no, my day's going really well. Thank you so much for asking. How's your day going? Right? Those high C's, just give me the data, leave me alone. It's 2 sentences, literally, right? Guys, 14% response rate. Next is my I's. These are the people. And I always put a meme in here because people typically think like, ooh, 4th email, that's a lot. Yeah, but I'm using a meme, so it's typically pretty funny. So even if you're like, wow, that's a lot of emails, it's kind of funny. It's going to be kind of hard for you to complain about it if you're laughing, right? If you don't get this, it's because you're not a Go engineer, or I'm not funny, which is entirely possible in this case. Boom, and I always reference, hey, let me know if you're interested in the role, or if you got a chuckle out of the meme. People will write back simply to say, hey, I'm not interested. That was pretty funny. In which case I go, oh, no problem at all. Follow up, 3 months. Boom, done. Following up with that person in 3 months. And guess what I'm going to send them in 3 months? A meme. They liked the meme. I know that already. The 5th email, it's not loading the picture for whatever reason. This is an old search, but this is a picture of my 2 dogs. They're super cute Australian Shepherds, who in no way look nefarious. They're just super cute in this picture. And I send that out. And again, a lot of people write back like, oh my God, those are really cute dogs. I'm not looking. And I'm like, hey, no problem at all. Follow up, 3 months. I'm going to send them a picture of my dogs again, right? So this works. It's an effective way of reaching out to people. using the specific searching methodologies I talked about with source-specific searching, I want to show you kind of what that looks like really quick, because it sounds daunting if you're like, oh, I want to reach out to, 100 people, but like 10 of them went to this school, or 30 worked at this company, or 10 grew up in this place. So this is a great example. Working on a Whole Foods role last year, two of their directors went to UT Austin. Winds up, that's a great school down there for software engineers. So 223 people also went to UT Austin. 80% open rate, 32% reply rate, and this is for software engineers in Austin, Texas. It's actually kind of a hotbed market. So I was like loving on that, particularly for a Java engineer. But ready for this, guys? This is all I added. That's it. I saw you went to UT Austin. Two of our leaders, boom, this and this also graduated from there. Your alma mater at Amazon. Done. Boom. Now this email is now customized. Everything else in all of these emails is the exact same. I don't even change anything. So that one sentence in here is the only change I need to make this a hyper customized email reach out for that one, in air quotes, person. So be mindful, it doesn't take that much time. It's super effective. And yes, I use a meme. This was sent out right when the final Game of Thrones season started, which, by the way, that was a disappointing last episode, huh? If you haven't seen it, don't even waste your time. Just wait for the books. So to talk about the point of the way things look, here was a message I wrote. You don't have to read it. Just generally look at like how it feels. Like, all right, cool. You can kind of to breeze through it pretty quick, right? Take in the data. Here's another message I wrote. Like, this does not seem to me to be very legible. Here's the thing. These are the exact same message, word for word, exactly the same. And so this is where I like to ask everybody, and I record it every time, is like, hey guys, which one of these is better, Batman or Superman? Which is better, Batman or Superman? And right now you're going, Batman's better. And I'm going, yeah, I know, thanks. So messaging, I'm going to stop for a quick second. Any questions?
Yes, we have quite a few.
Yeah, I thought.
Okay, so where are you tracking your follow-ups? Do you use an email client or ATS?
The email client I showed you, Interstellar, does that. So it, and any of the ones I mentioned, Interstellar, Gem, Resource.io, Top Funnel, all will track what step they're on, when they responded, if they didn't respond, et cetera, et cetera. If they respond to you, it doesn't keep sending the emails, right? That'd be ridiculous. So the second they respond, it stops them in the sequence.
Cool. Thank you so much. And can you suggest some humor tags and how to make them?
Yeah, so I use a website for this called, I think it's literally called Meme Generator, but let's double check. Image Flip, IMG Flip. So I think of just like modern pop culture stuff. Guys, nothing political, nothing religious, nothing opinionated. Cannot use any of it. It's inappropriate. So what do? I use pop culture references that most people can get, particularly, by the way, if you're in the software space or the engineering space. You may think, oh, they're super nerdy. They know more pop culture references than we could ever hope to know, right? So what I do typically is I'll look through some of the pictures here. Is there anything like really funny that I think is relevant? I can't tell you how many times I've used that one, right? And going through and just figuring out like, all right, what would be really funny here? If I still can't figure this out, I'll literally type in up here and I'll go, I don't know, mechanical engineer and meme. That's it. I'll search. I'll go to images and just to get some ideas. I don't use these. I'm like, oh, this one's funny. One of those like what everybody thinks I do. I'm like, oh, so this I saw, and I was like, this inspired my thought for the mechanical engineer. I'm like, oh, Iron Man. Weird, right? A superhero inspired me. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And so what did I come up with? I was like, oh my gosh, it'd be really funny for a healthcare tech company that creates a communications device that saves people's lives. Check this out. I'm going to make a meme. Nope. Yep. That is funny. That is objectively funny. My sister, who is not into superheroes, thinks that's funny. So I try to use like pop culture mixed with some type of humor or snark. Snark is my brand. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Snark is great.
Hmm.
Snark's a good bag. So, what are your thoughts on video over static images?
Have to be careful with video due to spam filters. So things that pull people out of the email can raise a flag to spam filters. File sizes that are too large can bring people out of, can raise a spam filter. Size of images, even this one's a little bit big for what I normally use, can bring people out of a spam filter. Or bring people into a spam filter. So you got to be really mindful about that. If you're going to want to use video in an email, there's a really, really great company that does that, whose name I'm having a brain fart right now. Their logo is green and red and white, and it's sales. Dang it. Message me afterwards if you want to know, and I can give you a really great one that doesn't hit spam filters. It's awesome.
Thank you. And we still have a ton of questions, but
Hit
do
me.
you want to go ahead and get through the next few slides and save
Sure.
the last ones for the end? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we can
So
do that, and you can hang out afterwards. And I'll stay on as long as you guys want me to stay on here. I wanna be able
thank
to give my time. So,
Cool. And if we don't get to your question, please feel free to send it to ashley@recruitingdaily.com and I'll make sure to shoot that over to Batman.
yeah,
Thanks.
cool. So qualifying. It winds up that I had a really good time in college and now I can't remember stuff. So I have to create acronyms for everything. If you've ever talked to me, you know I use acronyms for stuff that doesn't have an acronym. I just throw an acronym to it because I think it's funny. So I created this one called Core Values. And every time I'm doing a screen, a candidate screen, I literally write COREVALUES vertically. And then as I'm asking questions, it's not the order I go in, but as I ask the question, I'm jotting this stuff down, right? Right next to the letter. That way it keeps me organized. Did I get all of the data? Is my data all sorted in the same way every time? But the other piece is, guess what my submissions look like to hiring managers? It's this. I just copy and paste it and send it over. Why? Because they don't give a crap about your fluffy 2-paragraph write up, right? How many of us have had that experience where you send that over and they're like, hey, what's the reason they're looking for a new job? And you're like, it's the second sentence. It's literally the second thing I say. They're not reading your crap, right? They want specific data. They want to be able to pull it out immediately. This is what I send over, and all of my recruiters send it in the exact same format. So no matter who they're getting a submission from, it looks the exact same way, and they can find the data they want in the exact same places every time. Super beneficial. If you want this, I can send this file to you. Just email me. Avoid order taking. So I ask every time I do this, like, hey, do any of you think you're order takers? And like, I think I've had like 1 or 2 people ever raise their hand. And I'm like, bold statement. We should talk afterwards. But like, most people don't think they are. How do you know if you're an order taker? Great question. We want to find point D here. We want to find our filler words. So when you're talking to people, everyone has them. I have them too. I present a lot. I still have filler words. You're going to have a word that you're going to use to try to pivot the conversation into like a seeming non sequitur, right? Mine started as awesome in the industry, right? Hey, how are things going at your company? Oh, I actually got laid off. Awesome. What are you looking for next? Uh, Not awesome. Distinctly not awesome. The opposite, actually, of awesome. So what I encourage you to do is do a role play with someone at some point and discover your filler word, right? If you discover that, you will never be able to not notice it again. And you'll notice in your conversation, you're like, hey, what are you looking to do next? Awesome, awesome. And where are you located? Awesome. Can you talk to me a little bit about your, but it sounds interactional. It's not. It's not. You're just like saying the same word over and over again. If you removed that word, you'd sound like you were going down a checklist. The second part of this is when I grew up, and probably a bunch of us grew up, it was who, what, when, why, where, and how, right? That is what people want to know. Not anymore. Now it's what, so what, and now what. That's it. What are you talking about? Why does it matter to me? All right, what do you want to do? Right? That's it. So I start every call going, hey, here's what we're talking about. Here's why this is going to be important to you, right? I want to explain X and Y and Z to you specifically about the job so that we can decide if it's important. And then I want to cover X and Y and Z. And if it makes sense, make an intro to the manager. Boom. What? So what? And now what? Again, that's a Shally Steckerl gem right there. Last, screen candidates as candidates. So the point I'll make on this first is they're people. They're not candidates. They're only candidates because you reached out to them. They were people first. They'll be people after. Let's not forget that. They're not like a commodity of things that do stuff. Okay. The second is be yourself. So everybody always, this isn't any individual. Everybody struggles with like, how do you find the line between being yourself and being professional? Because we ultimately want to be ourselves, but like there's that line, right? Like, so I'm not gonna send an email with the F word in it. That's over the line for me. You'll notice I didn't say not curses, just the F word. Right? And so it's discovering your own voice. And the reason this is important is you represent a portion of your company's culture, right? They didn't hire an automaton, they hired you. And therefore, who you are, how you communicate, what's important to you is in alignment with the company. Caveat, if you're the person who eats your lunch alone in a bathroom stall every day, stick to professional speak. There's probably a reason you're eating alone in the bathroom stall. But otherwise, be yourself. It's okay. Guess what? Some people aren't really going to like that. And you know what? That's okay. I just talked to a company last week about using memes and like, well, what if people don't think memes and GIFs are professional? And I said, hey, do your engineers communicate in GIFs and memes? And they're like, yeah, almost exclusively. So I said, do you think they're going to fit in your team then? Great way to eliminate that from the process, right? So like, let's understand and just accept that. It's okay if people don't love you all the time. The goal is to find people who love you for the right reasons. This sounds like dating advice. Also true here. Who love you for the right reasons, not because you have a job open for them. So in closing, I'm going to share this story, which I share every time. It is about my sister, who is one of my best friends. Brilliant woman, graduated college year early with 2 degrees, worked at New York Life for 10 years as a financial analyst in the insurance space. And she came to me and asked and said, hey, I want to look for a new job. Will you help me? And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, obviously I'll help you. It's the one time in your life I can ever help you professionally on it. I was like, here's what we're going to do. You're going to find a job description. I'm going to find the hiring manager's name and email address, and the head of TA's name and email address. You're going to write a quote unquote cover letter, and then we're going to send that as an email, a very personalized email. So, boom, she found a couple of them and then sent one back for Bed Bath and Beyond as a manager of strategic finance. I'm like, hey, this job's focused on e-commerce and supply chain and is a manager and is strategic finance. You've been doing financial planning and analysis for an insurance company for 10 years. I don't think that's a fit. And she said, yeah, but I think I'd really enjoy it. And I think my skill set would line up. I think it's worth it. I said, fine. So here's hiring manager stuff. Send me a cover letter. And so cover letter reads exactly how you think. Dear hiring manager, I found your job on LinkedIn. I think based on my skill set, I would be an excellent fit for the role. I noticed that you're doing X and Y and Z. At New York Life, I also, oh my God, right? And I was like, hey, Lauren, you know that if you literally took out Bed Bath and Beyond, you could put in any other company name and it would sound the exact same. She's like, yeah. I was like, no, no. I was like, why do you want to work here? And she's like, well, I think my skill set aligns really well with what they're looking for. And I'm like, bullshit, stop it. I'm your brother. Why do you want to work here? She's like, oh, I have 3 kids. I shop there all the time. I think they're approaching strategy in a way to beat out Amazon in a really creative way. And I was like, cool, like write that. She's like, I am not writing that I have 3 kids and I shop at their store. And I'm like, do you not have 3 kids anymore? I was like, the youngest is my godson. I was like, I hope you still have 3, right? And so I told her, trust me. Trust me. It's the one area in the world I can tell you, like, please trust me. And so she did. And she wrote that in a super personalized message and sent it out. And I'll have you know, my sister Lauren works at Bed Bath & Beyond still today as a manager of strategic finance. The hiring manager only spoke to her because of her cover letter. Her resume does not line up at all. Her experience does not line up at all. But that cover letter, he said, you seem like somebody I want to work with. And so he reached out and she still works there. Guys, this stuff works. Let's get out of our heads and let's focus on being human and being okay just being yourself. You're awesome. You're good enough. And if people don't like it, fuck them. That's it.
That
So, yeah,
that's
sorry for the swear
wonderful.
word at the end. I don't have a better way to say it. Um, if you guys have questions, I will stay here as long as you want to ask questions.
So much for this. I've seen you at HRTX, obviously, so I knew this was amazing. But this has been brilliant, and we have a ton of questions. So, are
Let's do
you
it.
cool hanging out for a few
I
minutes?
said,
Oh,
listen, I've got 30 minutes, so let's do it.
well, we've got Go Jersey, drops mic, major applause, amazing story. I love this, and I cannot drop the F bomb because, this is my company. So, F bomb them.
Yeah,
That line was awesome. There you go. So, I'm going to start at the top, and we are just going to go down.
let's
Most
do
importantly, Batman, where's Robin?
it. So I will never have a Robin. If you're familiar with Batman stories at all, you know that the first Robin gets killed by Joker. The second Robin grows up to be Nightwing and hates Batman. And the third Robin is actually the son of Batman and Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia al Ghul. And he's like kind of half evil. He's kind of like an anti hero. So no interest. Sorry. I don't want to
Fair
geek out
enough,
too
fair
much.
enough.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back like about 20 minutes.
Go
Are
for
you
it.
interspersing with calls?
Am
With
I
your
what?
messaging, do you intersperse with calls?
No,
Do you mix calls in? Do you
no,
flip? No. Okay.
no. Mostly because
Cool beans.
I don't like getting cold calls, and I also don't like talking on the phone. So like between the two of them, I'm like, no thanks.
That makes a lot of sense. You're not alone in not
Mhm.
liking cold calls.
Yeah,
So do you send follow-ups until they actually reply? And how often do you send those follow-ups?
great question. So I send a total of 5 emails, and the time frame in which I send the emails, let's go to, I don't know, let's go to this one. Sure. So I send my first email when they're added. Second one gets sent out 1 day later. Next one is 2 days after that one. 1 day after that one. 1 day after that one. They all wind up sending out in about like a week.
Nice. Thank you. And
Mhm.
do you use this for biz dev as well?
No, I don't. I try not to do biz dev. Um, I uh, I try to win most of my business from just contributing and helping people, and I try to take the good karma approach, and it's been working so far that I try to help as much as I can and give as much of my time as humanly possible for me while still seeing my own success, and people wind up reaching out and wanting to work with me. Could you? Heck yeah. My wife works in sales strategy for Mercer, and she uses Interseller, so yeah.
I love it. Thank you. And have you tried different messaging for your fifth email message? If so, what? Or are they all takeaway type emails? Sorry, I'm reading that. So, in
Yeah,
case you
no,
can't
I
tell.
love it. I love it. It's a great question. So my encouragement for the fifth email, yes, I've tried a bunch of different ones. I find my puppy picture works the best. Like they're super cute, guys. I'll see if this one has a picture of them. Son of a biscuit. That is, I like that after dropping the F bomb, I'm now saying the word biscuit. Like I'm worried that someone's going to get offended. Um, see if I can find a picture. I'm also obsessed with my dogs. Come on, meow. So I try to write the last email in my own voice. So I want that to sound like me the way that I communicate. Um, and there they are. This is the one I use, right? Objectively, kind of the most adorable thing in the world. So for me, that's my voice. I encourage you in the fifth email, speak how you speak. Be as natural as humanly possible, and whatever speaks to your heart, do that thing.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see. After your 5 attempts, do you send an "I'm closing your app" type of email? Do you break up?
No, I never break up with people because that's objectively a shitty thing to do. That means it's all about you. I'm saying after the puppy picture, which goes here, hey, just kidding, I haven't been captured, blah, blah, blah. I just want to know whether we're in touch or aren't for the right reasons in the future. So I'm implying at some point, I'm going to reach back out again. May or may not be true. So you should let me know whether I'm on point reaching out to you or not. It's not closing the door. It's letting them know that, like, hey, you should have an invested interest in replying to me. If not, you may get another email in the future. But I never mentioned last reach out. I never mentioned any of that stuff because if 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later you're like, all right, I got to reach back out again, it wasn't really your last email now, was it?
Thank you. That's awesome. She says she agrees. She was just curious. So we're going to go back another 10 minutes to
Yeah.
1:50 p.m. Are you sending these emails only when you have a job to fill or just to stay in touch with your database of candidates? And I know you've kind of answered that, but I want to ask it
Well,
anyway.
yeah, no, that's a really great question, right? Are you building a quote
Mhm.
unquote talent community, whatever that means? So for me, I'm an agency side recruiter, so I'm sending it for jobs I'm trying to fill, right? For my clients' roles. So like clients will come to me with like a one-off job, right? Like waste management's given me a weird role to fill, or I'm on contract with like the New York Times, right? Where I do one of these sprints every single week. So for me, it's all job focused. For internal organizations, I always encourage set up a cadence of once a month of just reach out, right? And now that may mean that you set it up, which you can do in every one of these tools, that for each of these messages, that you're requiring a personalized message. So it won't send until you personalize it. So that way you're not sending, 3-month-old data to people that like, oh, cool, you'll get a reminder. I have to personalize this message to go out. Great. So input something that's going on in the news, input something funny, send a meme, just touch base. But don't like, hey, just want to see what's going on in your job search. Be funny, send something cool, send some data. But yeah, you can use it for both. I personally don't because it's not in my use case as an agency side recruiter. Well, contract sourcing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the next one. Do you have a recommendation for a texting service that allows you to send images, such as GIFs or memes? We use Text Magic, and I don't believe it allows that option.
Sure do. Sure do. It's called boop, simple texting, and it is awesome. Super affordable, team plans, sending image, automated campaigns. I'm sorry my computer is so slow. It's brutal when I have a video going in the background. Really, really good program for this, guys. You can pay as you go. You can get a monthly membership. You get your own phone number. It is really, really good for this. So yeah, reach out to these guys. They're great. If you mention my name, I'm sure they can get you a little bit of a discount. Um, if not, that's totally cool too.
That's called using a Batman.
Using that, throw up the bat
Okay.
signal.
Hey, and while we're on that, Talview also automates nurture campaigns. So I just want to throw that out there. Check that
Oh,
out.
I don't use Talview, not because I'm not interested, but I've never been in touch with them. So Talview, if you're on this and you want to, let's chat.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so what is your favorite automation drip campaign tool?
Inter-
Interstellar?
Interstellar,
That's the
yeah.
question mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
Interstellar, but here's the deal. I'm gonna caveat that by saying I'm currently cross testing 4 of them: Interstellar, Resource.io, Gem, and Top Funnel. I've just been using Interstellar, I think, since they were in beta like 4 or 5 years ago. So it's the one I'm most comfortable with, and it's the one where most of my data sits. But there are very clear use cases as to why to use one of the 4 over another. So if that's something you're considering, reach out. I'll walk you through kind of my thoughts at least.
Thank you so much. Okay, and I think you may have touched on this, but just to reiterate,
Yeah.
what is the best frequency of messaging you recommend? Like every other day, daily, every 3 days, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah. So I do the first day. So I do day 1, day 2, day 4, day 5, day 6. Right. I try not to message on the weekends if I can avoid it. I find that people tend to assume it's a like a message campaign if they're getting an email on the weekends. Depending on the role and the urgency, I might. But that way, you're keeping in touch regularly enough that they're like, okay, you're really trying to reach me. I get it.
Cool. Thank you. And do you have a preferred meme size?
I prefer to keep it as small as possible while still being legible, which is, I guess, a kind of rough answer. But I wanna keep it so it's not spanning the entire screen all the way across. For two reasons: one is mobile delivery. Two is not getting caught in a spam filter.
Caught in the spam folder is always a really good thing. That's a
Mm,
good goal to
uh,
have. So, what types of answers do you look for in your R qualifying not growth? I Does that
what?
make sense, that
No.
question?
Can you read it one more time?
What types of answer do you look for in your R
Oh,
qualifying
yeah, got it,
not?
So, yeah. So your question is, in my reason for leaving, what am I looking for? It says growth is not a reason. Yeah. So when people are like, oh, I'm looking for growth, it's bullshit. That's not an answer, right? No one leaves a company going, I want to take a step backwards in my career. That that's not a thing. Of course you want growth. So for me, I want to know specifically what are the things that you are doing that you don't want to do, or what are the things that you're not doing that you do want to do. Then, are there any culture or environment issues that are causing you to want to leave? I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's a huge percentage of people leave their company because of their manager. And that's fine. You could say, hey, I don't get along with my manager. Cool. What does that look like? Right? I want to know specifically. Talk to me about that. Right? Is your manager super micromanaging and controlling? Well, guess what? If the manager at my client or internally at your company is super micromanaging and controlling, bail. Be honest. Hey, I don't know if that's going to be a fit over here. We're kind of in that same type of culture. Sorry. Candidates will love you for that. They will love you. They'll love your honesty, and you'll be one of the few recruiters in the world who are choosing to be super transparent and look out for their best interest. It's huge.
Thank you. That is awesome. Okay, so we still have about 7 questions. Are you good to hang on for a little while longer?
I told you, you got another 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I know you do less biz dev, but
Hmm.
how do you ask for reciprocating help, i.e., that good karma, when you initially help someone else? I've taken a similar approach of helping others for the sake of helping, but instead of getting good karma back, I have been taken advantage of.
Yeah, so here's the deal. That's going to happen. I've also been taken advantage of, sometimes pretty hardcore. Um, the bottom line is I just kind of keep putting it out there and I turn the other cheek. I mean, it really helps. I'm pretty hardcore practicing Christian, so like I kind of just try to fall back on that, and like turn the other cheek and just be like, all right, I'm gonna keep doing it because at the end of the day, I believe it's the right thing to do. Um, and that kind of pushes me through. I don't really ask for reciprocating. Most good humans say, hey, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, let me know. And I say, hey, if you ever know of anybody looking for X or Y or Z, like I'd really appreciate it. We're definitely looking for some more business right now. Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, like it did for me 2 weeks ago, somebody I talked to back at SourceCon last year, this is like September, reached out and said, hey, would love to talk to you. You know, you gave me your time to do X and Y and Z. Would love to talk to you about bringing you on as a contractor. Wow, cool. May take a bit of time, but if you're in their head as like a good human providing a good value, they'll think of you.
That's beautiful. So ethics, morals, do it because it feels good. All right, so are you ready for the next? How do you use text versus emails in your 5 messages?
Text is my sixth, seventh, and eighth follow-up. So I guarantee for clients from my sourcing sprints a 25% response rate or higher. If at the end of my 5 emails I'm under a 25% response rate, I set up a 3 text message campaign that is a follow up from the emails, right? Remember, I don't say this is the last time I'm going to reach out to you. I reach out saying like, hey, I don't know if you got my emails, maybe they're getting caught in the spam filter, wanted to follow up. Everybody loves a short text message or something like that, right? Second text message, always a picture, always a meme of some kind. Third text message is, okay, I'm getting the feeling that blah, 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 something, try to be funny about it, but let them know like, hey, I won't text you anymore, but I'll probably reach out by email in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Kimberly says, what are BBI questions? Or BB1? I'm trying to read that. BBI questions?
Behavioral based interviewing.
Okay, cool. Behavioral based.
It's
Are you
funny. I had to
retained
think about
contingent?
that for a second. I was like, the hell are BBI questions? Like, oh, yeah. Again, I use acronyms for everything. This happens.
Cool. Thank you so much. Okay, are you retained, contingent, or other?
Yes. Short answer. So I try to avoid contingent and retained. I will take on select clients for that, people I really believe in, like I really like what they're doing, or it's a really compelling reason. By and large, I do contract sourcing. So the way that you would hire on like a 40-hour a week sourcer, that's what you'd hire me and my company on to do. But instead of paying me hourly, it's all deliverables based. So you pay me the same amount, right? You're paying 60 an hour, you'll pay me 2,400 a week. However, you're going to give me a job to work on Monday. Friday, at the end of the day, I'm going to deliver you 200 candidates with email addresses, 90% personal or higher, and they're going to be ranked against your job. I'm going to share with you all the Boolean that we use to find them. If our rankings look on point, that following Monday, we start a 5 email outreach for the 1s through the 4s. And you give us our next role and we work on it that week. So if it takes us 80 hours, okay, that's on us. If it takes us 2 hours, what do you care? You got exactly what you wanted out of this, and all the data is yours. It's 100% transparent.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So next
No,
goes to
thank
an
whoever
ATS
asked
question.
that question. I appreciate that.
Okay, let's see. Do you know any other ATS that is better than Paylocity for corporate high volume recruiting? Sorry, I'm reading.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, reach out to me on a one-to-one. That'd be a question that needs a little bit more diving into. That's what you're talking about is a really difficult space for sure, that high volume recruiting space. So if you want, let's have a chat afterwards. I'm not the deepest in that space, but I have a couple of friends that I could introduce you to who do that primarily for their business.
Nice, nice. Let's see. Do you ever use Connectifier? Am I reading that properly? To find personal email or cell phone numbers? And for that matter, what is your favorite tool to use to find cell phone numbers?
Great question. So here are the contact information finding tools that I use on a daily basis. Swordfish, that's my number one every time. Interseller has an insanely good one. Seekout has an insanely good one. HireTool has an insanely good one. Signal Hire is awesome for getting cell phone numbers. JobJet, Rocket Reach. And then I use very inexpensive ones whenever I can. I suggest for everybody Nymeria, The Reach, and Kendo. They are super into like really, really as inexpensive as you think they are. They're less than that actually. They're like I think like $39 for 1,000 lookups you can share with your team. They're only going to find 30-40% of the emails out there, maybe 50, but like totally worth it. So I use all of them. Swordfish is, in my opinion, the most effective. Now, that
Thank
being
you.
said, that's in the United States. When you start going global, that's when you're going to really have to start looking at some of these other tools more closely, namely Signal Hire.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's really good to know.
Mhm.
Okay, so back to tools. What is the order of tools you go through in your entire process?
Holy crap, that's an awesome question. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, here we go. Ready? Take a deep breath. So I start with Wufoo and I send an intake form to clients. From there, I'm jumping on a Zoom call to do my intake call. From there, I'm usually jumping on Seekout or Hire Tool to run a search. I'm then using Zap Info to export into a spreadsheet. Then I'm going to the other one of those to run a different search and export. Then I'm going to, depending on if it's a tech role or not, if it's a tech role, I go to Human Predictions, which is one of my favorite tools, run a search, and then I go to Amazing Hiring and run a search. If it's not a tech role, I'll then go to Engage Talent and run a search, and then Lead 411 or LinkedIn Recruiter to run a search. Yes, I hate LinkedIn. I hate them as an organization and their approach to recruiting. Their product still works really well. I just think for the cost, it's not even close to worth it. I have to have it because I do recruiter training, and it'd look really dumb if I didn't use LinkedIn Recruiter and didn't know about the changes they were making when training people. So I use all of those. I use Zap Info, scrape into the spreadsheet, boom. From there, I'm going through whittling stuff down, and then I'm loading into Swordfish, getting email addresses. I'm loading into Hire Tool, getting email addresses. I'm loading into Seekout, getting email addresses. And then I'm single-handedly looking up by going to their profile using Signal Hire, JobJet, Kendo Nymeria, the Reach, Interseller. And then if I have to, I'll use Zap to scrape the profile, look them up on True People search, and then backdoor it with a SQL injection with the URL I use, where you can basically guess people's email addresses, and if it's the one they use for their LinkedIn profile, it'll sync up and you'll actually see that that's the right one. From there, I take all of the people's email addresses and I export them out into a tool called Zero Bounce. Zero Bounce I use to make sure that they aren't going to bounce, they're not going to a catch-all, and they're not messaging abusers, which means they're people who are very quick to hit the spam button. All of those kill your IP. From there, I write out my messages and I load them into Readable. Readable is going to give me a score based on how good my emails are for deliverability, for accessibility to people, etc. I then copy all of those into Interseller, Resource, Gem, or Top Funnel. From there, everything's loaded in. I send the client deliverable spreadsheet over to the client, wait for them to approve, start sending the messages, kaboom.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I
thank
know.
you so
It's a
much.
lot. I know.
Just so everybody, I just
Very
want to make
good.
sure everybody knows you will receive a copy of the recording so you can take notes.
Yeah,
That's
as I said, take a deep
fantastic.
breath.
So we're going to go back to messaging. Are you ready for a tough question? This is a tough one. It's a challenge.
Ooh, yeah.
You're being challenged, Batman. Do you get candidates who respond asking for you not to reach out to them as much? 8 follow-ups seem a bit much, but that might depend on the role or how direct and tailored the messages are. So do you
You
get
know,
complaints?
that is not a tough question. That's the same question I get every time I talk about this. So that's a very good question. And the thought process people have is, "Oh my God, that's a lot of follow-ups. That's like being annoying." Here's the thing, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelers, but if your messaging sucks, they don't remember you. Right now, I want you to try and remember yesterday a spam message you received, who it was from. If you can, that's amazing. I haven't met anybody who could yet. Because you don't give a shit. It's a shitty message. You just move on, right? So if your messages are shitty, they're not going to remember you. If they're not shitty, they're going to respond to you. Whoop, pretty easy way to do that, right? Um, I will tell you, percentage wise, I'm usually getting, I'd say 1 to 3 people out of 1,000 who say like, "This is pestering, unsubscribe, blah 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 blah." It really, really doesn't happen that often. The ones that happen more often than that, believe it or not, are people who are like, "Hey, I really liked how persistent you are," or "I love a culture that kind of supports like this type of outreach. This seems like really awesome to have a culture like this." So things like that, I think, are going to always be a better a better search. So to give you an example, if you're like, that sounds a little bit like bullshit. So check this out. This is an outreach for waste management. Ignore the personal contact data. Don't be a jerk. But if you read, it says literally, if you can't read this, thank you for your correspondence. You are very persistent, smiley face. The emails have been going to an old email address that have not been forwarded and filtered, so she hasn't seen them in real time. I am currently happy in my role, supporting a very successful region in and around the Austin area. Your persistence and focus on culture, however, has me intrigued enough to respond to get a little bit more detail on the role. So I will tell you, I get an equal number of those emails.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to go back to phone screening. Do you phone screen candidates?
I do, and I have. I've been the first 11 years I was doing this was all focused on agency side recruiting. So tons and tons and tons of screens.
You. And aside from many, many comments on your, let's see, truly galactic process, we're at the last question. Do
Cool.
you ever use Superman versus Batman in your messaging?
Great question. I have in the past. I tend not to because I don't want to give that Boy Scout red, white, and blue sucker any more playtime than he already gets. No, kidding. I have in the past. I find that like I'm a little bit too nerdy about that stuff, and so like it's hard for me to stay like surface level and accessible when talking about like Batman versus Superman. I get like right into the weeds and the thick of shit, and so I try to avoid that. But as you can see, like I do use it for humor when I'm, talking to people about, presentations and stuff. So I try to work it in every now and again.
We happen to think that you are the perfect level of nerdy. I just want to throw that out there so you can walk away from this feeling really good about yourself.
Thank
We are
you.
done. If anyone has any more questions, please send them my way, or are you cool with direct communique?
Oh, please, yeah, reach right out to me. It's right somewhere there. Reach out.
It's
Out
in
of the
that slide deck.
Yeah, I was like, oh god.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was wonderful.
Thanks. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all of your questions. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help however I can.
Awesome. And I'm going to say bye, Michael. Have a wonderful day so I can be in trouble at the end. Thank
Uh,
you, everyone, for being here with us. This was great questions, just a fantastic session. Thank you to Talview and Glassdoor for being on with us as well. And you guys have a wonderful day, wonderful week. See you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Batman.